So you always have these unique programs. One of them you do is it's the no listing commission.
Right.
Right. It kind of sounds too good to be true. Mm-hmm. I know that often that actually upsets the industry a bit when someone like you is willing to offer your services for free because they think they're worth all this commission. So explain how it works.
So essentially, I've talked about this program before, but over the course of the past 2 years, we've had a lot of success with it. And it essentially is this. If a seller is willing and wanting to sell their property for a particular price, I am willing to go out and try to find a buyer to achieve that particular price and get them an offer and get a transaction completed. And if I do so, I will not be charging any listing commissions to that particular seller. So the way that it works essentially is, and understand, I can't do this all over the place.
Right.
Okay. What this takes in order for me to be able to do it is for me to be able to have buyers. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I work in some very specific areas, most notably in the Carmel Valley or 92130 zip code, and I list a lot of properties there. So what that means is we have a tremendous amount of buyers that we're running across through open houses and through our listings and internet or phone call inquiries. And I have a team of 5 buyer agents, and it's their job to service all of those buyers. And at any given time, we can be working with 80 to 100 buyers specifically looking to buy in the 92130 zip code. So I have this pool of buyers.
Yeah, so you have this bullpen, right, that you can tap into. You can go to your buyer's agents and all their clients and say, hey, we got this property. Now, one of the questions I was going to ask is why don't other agents do this? And I think you just answered it actually, in that they don't necessarily have the resources to pull it off. You
have to understand that the average agent in San Diego is doing anywhere from 1 to 3 transactions a year, okay? And so what that means is that any given day, the average agent may only have 1 or 2 buyers. Okay, they may not have the large pool that we particularly do, and so those 1 or 2 buyers isn't going to be able to facilitate a transaction from the numerous sellers that we're working with that many times want to employ this program. So you have to have a lot of business and you have to have a large pool of buyers in order to make something like this work.
So without that, it kind of is impossible.
It's tough. I would just say it's not impossible, it's tough. So, we do have this large pool of buyers. One of the questions sellers always ask me is, this sounds too good to be true. What's the catch?
Right.
What's in it for you and how does it work? Well, essentially the first thing I always explain to sellers is this. First, you don't have to sign any contracts with me whatsoever. Nothing. There's no obligation for you to have to work with me. Some agents will come to a seller and say, I have a buyer, but you also have to list it with me.
Right.
I don't do that. So there's no written obligation whatsoever. If a seller all I need from a seller is essentially a price that they're willing to entertain and to tell me exactly when it would be an ideal time frame as far as moving. So sometimes we have sellers who come to us and say, look, Kurt, I want this price, but I'm not really ready to go right now, but I would sell in 6 months.
Got it.
Well, many times our buyers are willing to wait for the right property and submit an offer.
Especially now, right?
Absolutely.
Low inventory.
If the inventory is low, a buyer's willing to come in and present an offer, but say, hey, seller, you can stay there or we can close escrow whenever you want or do a rent back or whatever the case may be. So, and then the next question people always ask me is, what seller in their right mind would do this? Why would a seller go down this particular route?
Why wouldn't they is my question, but
why
go
wouldn't
ahead.
they?
Yeah.
Well, first and the obvious is there are no commissions involved, right? If I'm going to present an offer to a seller, I am representing my buyers.
Right.
I'm not representing them, so they don't have to pay me any commissions whatsoever. But the more practical advantages for a seller is, one, they don't have to deal with buyers coming through their home, whether that be through an open house or through numerous showings. Again, they can kind of set the timeline of things. Most sellers who officially go on the market with the MLS have an understanding that if they get an offer from their buyer, they're going to have to move out in 30 to 60, maybe as long as 90 days. But under this program, they could, facilitate a transaction, and we've even worked things out where they stay for six months to a year.
You make a good point on a lot of times people don't like to make this public knowledge that they're even selling their house. I think I see this a lot in the luxury market. There's not always these open house front yard signs because people want to keep it off the radar a little bit. So to me, this is really interesting because, well, first of all, you couldn't do it if you didn't have the buyer pool. So you've crafted this based upon the success of your business, knowing that you're able to bring these people on. Now, in the past, you've talked about doing the for sale by owner and how you'll even allow sellers to sell their property right alongside you at their own price. And if you can sell it for more, you'll even you'll take the commission that way, but only if you can justify it by getting a higher price point. So in future shows, I want to talk about that as well. So it's pretty unique. I mean, you've crafted this thing. It obviously is working well. If there's anything that anyone would say, well, is it too good to be true? Is there any catch?
Well, there's 2 points you mentioned. One is, sellers and some of the advantages. Privacy absolutely is one of them. Many times sellers do not want to have people coming through. So the question they ask me is, well, how are you going to find buyers? Are you going to put my home on the internet? Are you going to put it on the MLS? The answer is no. We don't do that. We don't even take pictures of their property. I do have to walk through it so I have an understanding of the condition that it's in and the amenities and situation of it, etc. But we don't take any pictures. I have all of the information, and only our prospective buyers are able to see these properties. So it's very private and confidential for sellers. The next question you touched upon would be, why do I do this, right? Why do I do this? The reason I do it is I essentially make this an added value proposition for the buyers that I'm working with.
Right. Any
agent can find properties on the MLS for their buyers and say, hey, what about this one or what about that one? But for my buyers, they're not only exposed to things that are on the MLS or the internet. I have these other sellers potentially or inventory of homes that I can propose to them that might fit their needs. Currently in the 92130 zip code, I have over 80 people signed up under this program. Okay, when I say signed up, they've just given me their price and permission to entertain offers. So this is a benefit for my buyers to be able to see the additional inventory, see additional homes that meet their needs that aren't officially on the market. So that's essentially why we do it and why we don't charge any particular commissions. I'm not concerned about getting the listing. I'm concerned about servicing my buyers, and we're more than happy to receive a commission for representing them.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. There's two sides to the equation, and when you have attracted this many people who are relying on you to find their home, then you can do unique things like this that a lot of the industry can't do. Was there 20,000 realtors? Right?
Yeah, we're up about 22,000.
22,000 people who can call themselves experts and handle your biggest investment and your biggest debt when you're talking about your mortgage. Kurt Wannebo, I know you're a busy guy. It's always good to have you in here. Thanks for coming on The American Dream.
Thanks for having me, Craig.